Hey everyone, sit tight. We're gonna give a few more minutes for everyone, the last minute people to join, and then we'll get going.
Hi,
Howdy,
David.
Yvonne.
Hey, I'm sorry. Now I'm here. I'm all yours.
All good, all good. Welcome.
All good. Thank you so much. Yeah, Yvonne, we haven't met before. I'm David. I'm coworkers with Asher, who I believe you've met before.
Yes,
And yeah, I thank you so much for joining us today. For the audience, for those who don't know, we're here with Dr. Yvonne Lutsch. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
perfect. I
Awesome.
would I would pronounce your last name in a different way than you
I
probably do.
Yes, that is correct. My name is a German word. I believe it means finished or ready. Is that
Perfect.
correct?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. I was once handed a coffee and I was wondering how the guy knew my name. But anyway, uh let's get into it. So thank you for joining us. Before this is an Ask Me Anything, partnering with Deep Tech Showcase and Eagle Point Funding. Uh, we have a list of questions, but just before we get into that, do you want to take a couple minutes and introduce yourself and what Bosch Ventures is and what you do?
Yes, sure, sure. And thank you, David, and thank you, Asher, for having me here. Big pleasure. So yeah, I came across Deep Tech Showcase a while ago, and I'm an occasional panelist and like VC who asked the startup some questions to make the whole event more meaningful for everyone, and I enjoy this a lot. So yeah, I have been with Bosch Ventures for more than 6 years now, and before that, I have been with the Bosch Corporation. In total, more than 20 years experience in quality management, manufacturing, supply chain, engineering, all very operational roles, and all around the semiconductor, micromechanical sensors, MEMS, and also automotive electronics business. The Bosch Venture Group itself, we are a global team, and we are the official, corporate venture arm of the Bosch Group. I don't want to explain here what the Bosch Group is about, other than it's a multi-billion, German international conglomerate of all different kind of businesses, and we do investments in startups, like very much like a traditional VC for the Bosch Corporation, to eventually, and that's the overarching like theme or mission, to open Bosch for open innovation, because we believe in the long run we don't want to and we cannot invent everything ourselves. Even though the Bosch slogan is invented for life, we do not want to invent everything in-house. The venture group, we are 20 plus people with offices in North America on the East and the West Coast, Germany, Israel, and China. And these are the big geographies we are investing in. We do maybe 8 to 10 investments a year globally. We, as I said, very much with a financial focus, but some strategic fit or some strategic relevance to the Bosch Corporation. We mainly invest in Series A and B, although we do some earlier and some later stage checks. A typical check size in the Series A and B might be around $5 million US. And since we are financially focused and we also want to measure our performance, we are fund-based, even though we have one LP, and that's the Bosch Corporation. But we are raising funds. Fundraising is actually relatively easy. We do this for more than 15 years. We are currently investing out of Fund 5, which is a 250 million euro fund. And Fund 6 is in the making. So the Bosch Corporation is very, very committed to us continuing this for many, many more years. The areas we are interested in, and that's why we also like the Deep Tech Showcase, is all different kind of deep tech areas. This can be medical and life sciences, but that's only a small part of it. A bigger part is in the industrial automation, electronics, automotive, mobility, and also like other spaces like energy and building. And since we like deep tech, we invest a lot into sensors, semiconductors, AI, hardware, software, SaaS, robotics, automation. I mentioned already. We are also looking into climate solutions, where carbon capture, the hydrogen economy, long duration storage, recycling, critical minerals can all be of relevance for Bosch.
Wow, that is sorry, go ahead.
Yes. Now, one last thing, because some of the startups are interested, just to listen to that. We do lead rounds, we co-lead, we follow, we can all of it. Look at us rather like a financial VC, from how we evaluate companies. We just want to see a strategic relevance to the Bosch Corporation, and we don't need a Bosch business unit blessing, but we want to see a relevance.
Awesome. Yes. So that was a really, really great introduction. And you even touched on some of the things that I was going to ask about. So thank you. The first question was, and you already covered this, but telling us about your background, and you also touched on this as well. But could you tell us a little bit more about what your current role is? How do you interact with small businesses or anyone else?
Yeah. And what I didn't mention, I don't know whether anyone think it's interesting or not. I'm a physicist by training, but that's ages ago.
I think that's
and we have a very good mix in our team of financial people and more technical people. And I think, the diversity in the different disciplines makes it very, very useful for us. My role is I'm called investment principal. That means I have full responsibility from sourcing deals, doing the full due diligence together with startups, and finally also investing in deals. We don't have an analyst team. That means we do everything. I do everything myself. Whether this is, team evaluation, market evaluation, technology evaluation, including financial. For technology, we might use Bosch knowledge there, because we have experts within the Bosch Corporation for almost everything. And we also want to hear what they have to say. But I also like to say that we always have to take this with a grain of salt, because in a large corporation, there's always a not invented here theme going on. So we always, we listen very careful whether this is something, Bosch really is doing or trying to do or tried in the past, or whether this is something they were thinking about, and it's actually a great fit to work with a startup, because, in a large corporation, Bosch, we cannot do everything ourselves, as I said.
Yeah.
So that's how we work with startups. And I talk to several startups a week, and then, once in a while we go into deep due diligence, and then they see me more often than they want.
Very good. Do you mind just expanding on that theme? Could you tell us a little bit about how you see your organization interacting with new tech in the future? I mean, if you're looking at so many different fields and so many different types of technology, so how's that going to play out over the next few years?
That's a very broad question, but many things going on in my mind, because sometimes we look at technologies that are kind of like obvious, but still like things that we know that they are coming. I mean, one like very, very specific topic is like automotive Ethernet. When I looked at the topic 5-6 years ago, we were like, is Ethernet ever going into the car or not? Maybe not. So there were some early stage companies, startups, we did not invest. Now it's kind of obvious, it's coming, it's very clear which one of the many startups will make it. Specifically in the automotive space, it's super hard, it's super price sensitive, and it takes forever, like 5 years from talking to the OEM to getting into a car. So we're looking into these topics that are like literally on the street, and kind of predictable to come. But we are also looking into areas, and we invested in startups in quantum computing, where we actually already had a good exit. We did not expect that when we invested in IonQ, but they were able to, sometimes timing is your best friend. They were able to spec exit in 2020 or 2021, and they had a very good exit there. And they are for sure one of the better companies, so where they were also able to keep their share price kind of stable. We have other investments in the quantum space, and that is still more like out there, right? It's more of a bet. It's less about, predicting the future, maybe together with some insights from Bosch. Sometimes it's more about, there might be something out there and we want to be part of it, and we want to explore these opportunities together with that startup.
Yeah.
So it's all of these things. And of course, we are always looking into, areas, technologies that are currently interesting from an investment perspective, right? Because for any new trend or any new topic, and all of you heard about the Gartner hype cycle, it is important also from a pure investment perspective. If you are looking for financial return, there's also a great timing for the right time to invest. Sometimes startups are too early or ideas are too early, and sometimes they are too late. So that is also very important for a startup to consider.
So thanks for that. Speaking of timing, I mean, what are your thoughts on the overall current economic landscape as it relates to deep tech startups?
Yeah, I was thinking about this question, and I did not exactly how to answer it. I mean, we see that on the one hand, like, public markets are still like, except, the big players, the Microsofts and Amazons and Googles of the world. But they are also big customers and potential acquirers of many big deep tech areas. So I think for deep tech, if you are really having a good idea, maybe something, that you were working on for years, that came out of university with strong patents, I think there's never a good or a bad time for deep tech.
So if you have a startup, just go for it.
Just go for it. Yes,
There you
that's
go.
what I think. I feel that deep tech, and in particular semiconductors, climate, is has actually a very good time currently, because there is awareness. There is awareness in the VC ecosystem and in the public that these are super crucial topics, whether this is for, climate mitigation reasons, or whether this is for economic reason because of the separation of the Eastern and the Western world. We want to become independent from China, and China wants to become independent from the Western world. And on the one hand, economically, it's probably challenging if you have separation of markets, because you cannot trade that easily. On the other hand, from an investment perspective, you have actually the opportunity to invest in both markets, because both markets are in themselves very, very large, and you are cutting off potential competition because of the decoupling of the markets.
Very interesting. Never thought about it like that. Okay. So on that, if you were speaking to a small business with a technology like, something like you mentioned in climate tech or anything else, how would you advise them if they were interested in engaging with Bosch Ventures or with Bosch Group as a whole?
Or with other investors for that matter, right?
Yeah, with anyone.
I think the most important thing is, just try to get as much information as you can get beforehand. There's tons of online resources. If you're talking to Bosch Ventures, think about, how this could benefit and how this could fit to Bosch from a strategic perspective, before you talk to us. Because to be honest, Bosch is such a large business. We are $100 billion business. We have 20,000 employees, and I don't know how many business units worldwide. Sometimes I am losing track of what, all different areas Bosch is active in, but it's all, there's online resources for everything if you look for it. So it's actually a great opportunity for a specific startup to look at all these resources and to figure out how they could fit to Bosch, and use that for a strong pitch from a cooperation perspective. Even though we've eventually invest for financial return, showing that you did your homework and that you are aware of the different cooperation opportunities with the Bosch corporate, that's very valuable.
So show up knowing what you're talking about and make a good pitch.
And at the
Yeah.
end, make a good pitch and have a good business case.
Yeah, that's really important. Okay, so at Deep Tech Showcase and at Eagle Point Funding, we work a lot with organizations like Bosch Ventures, and we also work a ton with U.S. government grants, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
what would you say, what do you think of the way that the U.S. government how do you think about how they engage with startups? And is that something that you think is beneficial for startups?
I do think so, yes. Although that's also like a topic we can talk about for an hour.
Yeah.
I think principally early grants, SBIR, and all the other different vehicles, I think are super valuable for very early stage startups to bring their technology from lab to a stage where you can be thinking of industrialize it and to bring it to the market. Their grants can be super helpful. On the other hand, we had this example as well, that for whatever reason, some of the companies, they are getting grant after grant and grant for many, many years, and you don't see that they have the grit, the thoughts, the ambition, the goal to become a big company, to raise money from institutional investors, to not to be scared to get diluted. If we see that these startups, are sticking to the grants, that's also a warning sign for us.
Oh, interesting. So that would be a reason for you guys to say maybe this isn't going to be a good investment.
Yes, and maybe it has to do with, with how the people in that team think and work. And there's nothing bad about it. It's probably just not the right thing for us to invest in. And maybe they can become a good business and go from grants to revenue right away without raising any VC money, and that's also fine. But if you want to raise VC money, then you have to do it like with your full heart and mind, and don't be scared about getting diluted. You didn't ask me that question, but I am always getting nervous if a founder is like, yeah, we want to raise only 5 million because we don't want to get too much diluted. And when I hear this, that they are dilution sensitive, I'm always getting nervous. Because it can tell me, I mean, of course it's not that they are losing their chances by saying that, but I'm always being aware of that, and I want to test how crucial that really is for that and for that founder, because eventually I always say, do you want to have a small piece of a big cake or a big piece of a very small cake? Because the smaller piece of the big cake can be, in numbers much bigger.
That's very interesting. Thanks for sharing that. Definitely some food for thought for for any startup founders out there. So,
but on the other hand, I just want to say, I mean, some startups they were able to self-fund and become super big without any outside investments, and that's also fine. I mean, that's very cool, right?
yeah.
But
So I think
if you want to go into VC, then all in and try to grow as fast as you can.
Yeah, sounds like there are a ton of different factors that go into it, and this is just one of them. But that's really helpful information. So to any other startup founders out there, I mean, in your opinion, what do you think are some of the current challenges for these companies, that ones that are making dual use technologies or anything in the deep tech space?
I mean, because I am in deep tech, I am only seeing that space. And I feel like there is also a lot of money because I probably know many of the other deep tech VCs because, we are talking to each other, we are sharing deal flow, we are sharing thoughts. Overall, there is probably, never enough money for deep tech. So overall, it can look very intimidating for a first-time founder to see, how much money is available in total and how little money is available for deep tech. But as I said, I think the time is actually very good because of the current climate in terms of decoupling of markets and awareness on climate change. There's the IRA, it's still called IRA, but doesn't matter, where companies get real big funding money and loans for specific climate related solutions. There is the CHIPS Act for semiconductor businesses. And I hear that, and I think like a year ago, I was pretty skeptical because the CHIPS Act, that it comes with a lot of prerequisites for a company to actually get that money. But I'm hearing more and more that companies are actually getting money.
Yeah.
So I think this is also like a machinery that has to, start, and people have to get used to, how to get the money, and the people who are releasing the money have to get used to how to judge and how to do that. So I think actually the time is as I said, is good because money is still there.
Yeah. So it
In
sounds like,
addition to VC.
it just sounds like you're saying over the past couple of years, it's taken time for the wheels to get rolling on that. But it seems like now that it's going, it's gonna go. Really go.
Yeah, that's at least my observation. Whether this is, that's my personal observation. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks for that. Awesome. So in terms of you and Bosch Ventures, and you've already answered this offhand, but just specifically, for 2024, the rest of it, and for 2025, what are your technology goals, technology priorities, I should say?
I would not say priorities, but just areas I am curious about. I am spending some time because I see there's a lot of startups, a lot of movement is industrial automation, robotics, logistics robotics, robotics, like companies who make robotics programming obsolete or much, much easier to replace tedious, dangerous, dirty, and exhausting human labor with robots, work that no one wants to do. And this is not replacing jobs. This is like necessary because we talk to these people, we talk to these potential customers, and they all tell us that labor shortage almost kills them. So that's a super interesting space. And there's, of course, if you say robotics nowadays, you cannot say robotics without Gen AI. So whether large language models or large robotics models or large worlds models, I don't know how people will call them, how much they can actually make robots doing everything just by understanding the world. That's a huge promise. That's very early. There's a lot of money going into the space, maybe even too much money. But it's a super interesting space we want to follow and better understand. Since I mentioned Gen AI, I think in the topic of industrial AI, like big industry companies like Bosch, utilizing AI in a meaningful way, analyzing all these gigabytes of data they are producing every day and making meaningful decisions out of that. It is something people are talking about for years, but it's super complicated also to enable this in a real world situation. And I feel like with, the advancements in generative AI, this becomes better and easier. So there's a lot of opportunities there. I think the whole semiconductors and also hardware infrastructure for data centers is a big topic. Whether this is, faster and more power saving chips, whether this is switches, whether this is cables, whether this is cooling, whether this is independent power supply, redundant power, chip reliability. There's a ton of things happening because all this AI has to be computed on something.
Yeah,
so
that's for
there's
sure.
a huge demand. And then if you look down the supply chain, then you figure out there is not enough metal on this planet to fuel all these data centers in the next 10 years. So recycling, sustainable recycling, back to mining, even though mining is probably too far away from, the Bosch business. But recycling is definitely an important topic. We are also looking at, and we also did some investments.
Wow, awesome. So you guys are really going after a very wide range of stuff. They're
very wide range, and I probably forgot 5 other topics did not mention for the now.
Well, we're gonna have some time at the end for audience questions, and I see people did ask about some specific industries, so we'll go through them. Okay, so in your experience, you obviously come across a lot of companies, a lot of different programs. Are there any different specific accelerators or programs that you would recommend to deep tech founders?
So since I am an advisor for Berkeley Skydeck,
Okay.
I mean, I became an advisor, not that long time ago, but I have been with Berkeley Skydeck for a longer time. I think that's a super high high quality accelerator. So getting in there is not super easy, but getting in is already an achievement. And I know some of the advisors is a super, super strong industry advisor network of hundreds of people. I think that is pretty unique. There are others that have very different USPs or advantages. There's another one, Plug and Play Tech Center here in Sunnyvale, where the accelerator program itself, I think it's not that super strong, but they have these hundreds of corporate partners. They are opening to the startups, so they can work with corporates relatively easily. And they have like many, many different verticals, and many of them are deep tech, like IoT, mobility, energy, and I forget 10 others. I think Y Combinator as an accelerator still has a very good reputation. It's not all about deep tech, but there are a lot of deep tech companies in there as well. And the Sequoias of the world are very, very, aware, and they're looking very closely what happens at Y Combinator.
Yeah.
500 startups, I think, is also a very good one. And then there are tons of smaller ones. I'm probably not aware of everything, but these are the ones that came to my mind right away.
Awesome. Thanks. So just to summarize that, you said in reverse order, you said 500 startups, Y Combinator, Plug and Play for their strong corporate connections. And you said the first one was Lawrence. What was it again?
No, Berkeley Skydeck.
Sorry, Berkeley Skydeck.
Yes.
Awesome. And you're an advisor there. You said already for a little while.
Yeah.
Awesome. So cool. And just going back to the last two questions, and then we'll get to audience questions. Have you seen, and you kind of answered this at the beginning, has there been a geographical focus area or any specific trends that you guys have been seeing?
I mean, so we are, just by definition, our team here in Sunnyvale, we are responsible for North American West. That includes also Canada. And we have a team in Boston that's responsible for North America East. And for the middle, I don't know, we do rock, paper, scissors or something. There is not so much in the middle.
I was about to ask, is there any competition between the coasts?
No, and it's never about competition. And it's like, I don't know, it's interesting when I see startups from different regions. I am always getting excited when I hear about a startup that is not from the Silicon Valley, because then, to be honest, I hope that their valuations and their expectations are more reasonable, to say it that way.
Very
Because
interesting.
sometimes things here in the Valley are just super expensive. And they are expensive because there's so much money here. There's so much access to money. But on the other hand, I see sometimes startups from, not the West or the East Coast, the middle of something, who are almost too humble, too conservative in terms of, how they think about the future, how they think about they can grow. But we are there to help them, and maybe it's also very helpful for them, to go to some of these accelerators and to interact with their peers and to get inspiration from the other founders how to think about their own company future.
That's
But
fascinating.
I see this kind of, I mean, that's all very, very, high level, and of course there's exceptions to everything, but that's how I see it. Specifically the mid US to the coasts.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Thanks for that. That's a very interesting way of putting it. So I guess last question, and then we'll get to the audience questions. In your experience with lots of different other venture capital organizations, how does Bosch Ventures differ?
In the good way, or?
You you take the lead on that one.
So in the way where I think there is still improvement potential, and that's why I'm also here, I still have to explain every single startup I'm meeting what Bosch Ventures is about. It is unfortunate that not everyone knows about us. I think with a 250 million euro fund and over 1 billion asset under management, we are a credible investor. I think we can bring a lot of value because besides the pure investment vehicle, I have to say, and I want to say that, as I mentioned, right, at the end, it's about opening Bosch for open innovation. We have inside the venture group, we have a specific team, and their fantastic name is Open Bosch. And you can think about it and meditate about it. It has 5 different meanings at least. And their own mission is, and their only reason of existence is to connect startups with the Bosch Corporation for commercial reasons. For, you start with a discussion, proof of concept, and then you come to a commercial agreement. And they do this very professionally with the so-called venture clienting model. And that's an additional value we can bring to startups, even though even if we are not investing at the end, because we are very, very selective. And as I said, we invest worldwide and maybe up to 10 companies a year. We see all these other companies and we introduce at least 10 times more companies, 100 to 200 to Bosch business units every year. Not every introduction becomes a meaningful collaboration, but it's always a chance. I think that's, of course, that is add-on value we can bring.
Okay, awesome. Thanks so much. If it's all right with you, I guess we'll take some audience questions. Do you want me to pick them, or can you see them on your end?
I don't think I see them, but I didn't check I don't have a Q&A here.
So
Mine is
I'll
empty.
be honest, I don't know how to turn that on in the moment, and we'll do without it. So quick yes or no. Andy wanted to know, do you guys invest in cybersecurity?
We do. And actually, one of our recent investments was in the cyberspace, a company called Clarity. They do endpoint cybersecurity.
Awesome. Thanks for that. So this is, I guess, another yes or no. Michael prefaces by saying the ocean economy is obviously a growing one, and it's very large. So does Bosch Ventures have any interest in dual use blue tech companies such as maritime robotics, specifically that are autonomous, energy harvesting, and just long duration ocean going vehicles? It's a lot of words. I'll repeat it if you need.
No, but I think I know what he means. So the thing is that it has to have a strategic relevance to the Bosch Corporation. If this is an area where Bosch has currently no business in and also no interest in going into that business in the near future, then it's probably difficult for us.
That makes sense.
But just one example, I recently talked to a startup. They want to do deep sea mining with autonomous robots. I thought that is super cool. But since, as I said, since this is like, mining is at the very end of the whole supply chain, it's just a little bit too far away from us. We didn't look deeper, but I think it's a super cool space.
Okay, cool. So you guys are interested in what's immediately relevant for Bosch, obviously, and
Kind of, yeah.
well, also forward thinking, but
Yeah.
But mining is a little too far removed.
Yes,
Okay.
and also the whole power generation from tidal waves and all these things. It's probably a little far away from Bosch's current business. But never say never, because as I said, I'm not aware of all business Bosch is having and doing.
Makes sense. Okay. So here's a good one because we were talking a lot about artificial intelligence before. So Ivan wants to know, how do you guys approach conversations for AI opportunities, specifically with regard to personal privacy and public safety?
I think privacy in general is very important. And since we are a global investment vehicle and we have like our headquarters in Germany, you are all aware that privacy regulation in Germany and Europe are even stronger than in US. I think we are always having we always have this in mind. Public safety, I think, is an interesting topic, but it also has to be a topic from a venture perspective that we think is scalable. And of course, also safety comes sometimes with surveillance, where surveillance and privacy sometimes go hand in hand and sometimes go totally against each other.
Yeah, it's an interesting
So, but
dichotomy.
it's an interesting topic. For example, we're looking into topics like how can you make like people's faces like unrecognizable when you collect these data and when you make your analytics to keep privacy, but on the other hand, enable safety. Or we are looking into topics like what it's called, secure compute or secure compute on encrypted data, homomorphic encryption and other technologies are there. And that's also a space we are looking at because we think in the days of AI nowadays, you have to think about how to enable compute in a privacy conserving and a secure manner.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for that input. I think for the next question, Alec wanted to ask, this is a bit about Bosch Ventures process. So if you guys identify a strategic space for a startup, how do you go about comparing existing startups in the space? And do you ever run competitions to test out the offerings against each other?
As the Bosch Venture Group itself, I'm not aware that we ever ran a competition. But there are specific areas where Bosch does their own benchmarks. For some specific topics, the Bosch experts, they can get samples or buy off the shelf and they can run, electric tests or whatever benchmarks. And if we can tap into that, that's of course very beneficial. And in other areas, if we figure out there's a super interesting space, and sometimes you stumble upon a new space because you talk to the first startup or one startup in the space, and then you realize, oh, there are others as well. Then we probably also talk to several of them to make our own mind. And of course, we always ask the startups how they see the competition and what they think about how they distinguish themselves from competition. That is also super important. I just told yesterday another startup that I torture all of my portfolio companies with sending them potential competitors, things I see online, I stumble across at conferences. I think they all hate me for it. But I want them to be aware of potential competition, because if you don't have any competition, that's probably also not good, because that means you are in a space that is not interesting for anyone. But if there is a lot of competition, I think it keeps you up to date and it keeps your mind sharp to think about competition and to distinguish yourself from them, but not spend too much time on it, because you also have to focus on your own company. But if I hear like, I feel like I hear the same story the fourth or 100th time, and the startup tells me we are super unique because we are solving this problem, I am like, I almost feel insulted because they should know what we know, at least high level.
Very interesting. So has that happened a lot where someone has said, we've got something totally unique, and you've spoken to 5 similar companies that week?
It happens more often than you want.
Very interesting. How do you
And
approach a
maybe they have a
situation?
unique, and maybe they have a unique value proposition somewhere, but then they have to be more outspoken about it so that I get it right away.
Interesting. So it's very important to, even if you are in a fairly saturated market, to focus on what makes your company and your technology solution different.
Yeah.
Okay, great answer. So someone wanted to know, this is a very practical question. Teo says he's a semiconductor chip company founder, and he wants to know if a company is interested in getting in touch with you, is there a way to do it, and how is it done? Is it only through referrals? Can you tell us a bit about that?
Everything is possible. If you know someone who knows me well, that is, I think, very welcome. If they dare to send me a direct message on LinkedIn, I cannot guarantee that I take care of it, but very often I do. We have a inbox through our webpage, or whether they see that I'm at a conference and they approach me, it's all possible.
Okay, awesome. Thanks. That's a pretty practical answer. Um, Here, let's see. What are these questions? Colleen wants to know, and I think she may also have raised her hand. So if this is the question that she's waiting to ask, we're getting to it now. Does Bosch see urgency and priority for solutions to address the global plastic waste crisis and failed recycling?
Yes. I very personally think that we have a huge task in front of us, to clean up this mess, literally. And there is more and more regulation on the other hand, for recycled plastic content, even in automotive parts, in consumer goods, in like we have a tools, power tools, and we have an appliances business, which is very consumer centric. And the more consumer centric it is, the more impact you can actually generate with recycled material. Technically, it's of course not simple, but there's definitely opportunities there. Yes.
Okay, awesome. Thanks for that. Fabio was interested to know, are you guys interested in investing in vertical and takeoff, VTOL
VTOLs, vertical takeoff and
vehicles?
landing.
Yeah, for regional air mobility.
Not so much.
Not so
We are
much.
discussing this internally back and forth all the time. I think it's a super interesting space, but it's also a very difficult field with regulation, safety. We see some good movements, literally in the movement of goods space. But if it's about transporting people, I think the amount of regulation you have to go through, the hoops you have to jump through, is even higher. And it's not a Bosch business Bosch has a large urge to go into, at least to my understanding. So therefore, we are probably a little bit more reserved than in other fields.
Very interesting. Okay. So this is a pretty interesting question. So you come from Bosch, which is a German company, of course. So Floris wants to know, could you share your thoughts on the United States market versus the European Union market? and they specifically added in that they've read that the European market is catching up to the U.S. market, whatever that means. So
In
what
any
are your thoughts on
specific? Any
the no, it
like the
doesn't mention
public
a
market?
specific market. I would say, I guess, the economies overall, and of course we're here to talk about deep tech. So let's start there.
I don't know exactly whether I can and will answer the question because some things I probably don't know. What I see actually is that in terms of deep tech startups, innovation, and also early stage investment money support, there I see that Europe, Germany is becoming better. Whether they are able to catch up, I think that's a different story. I think there is still room to catch up with US, with North America. In terms of public markets, that's something that's kind of beyond my current focus. So I cannot really judge on that a lot. I feel honestly, when I go to Germany once in a while, I feel like the overall mood is more positive here, but I think it was always the case, right? In US, people are always like looking more forward and less backward than in Europe, and this has to do, you know, with the long history you have in Europe and the shorter history you have here in US. But I think in terms of startups, I see that, you know, there's more and more very brave and very good founders emerging from Germany and from Europe. And I also see many of them specifically for later stage coming to US for fundraising, because later stage investments, there's still a lack of money in Europe actually to support the ecosystem.
Okay, yeah, thanks for that analysis. That's of course just it's much more complicated than can be answered in just this session. So someone wants to know, let's see. So sorry, I'm just gathering my thoughts. An anonymous attendee asked, Bosch Ventures has supported a number of quantum computing companies over the years, right? You mentioned this before as well. Is that an area where you guys are still actively seeking companies to invest in?
I think we are still looking at, and I feel like there is a second quantum or a third quantum like movement currently. I see a lot of early stage startups again. But on the other hand, we also have to be careful about, you know, how much money we put in one specific basket or area. So we also have to do our own portfolio management. So therefore, I think we are still looking at the space, but we are not like we want to do 5 investments in the next couple of months.
That makes sense. Okay. So here we've got a pretty specific one. Timothy wants to know, is there interest in photovoltaics that are integrated into the building? So like, for example, in the building facade materials, and that way it would power the building while also removing embodied carbon.
So photovoltaics as a specific investment area, I think it's a difficult area for us because of the experience specifically Bosch made a couple of years ago in Europe. Bosch invested heavily in photovoltaics, and then you know, the market changed dramatically when the Chinese entered the market and they could produce the solar cells so much cheaper. I think generally I never want to say never, but it must be super compelling to make us looking deeper into the space.
Very interesting. Okay, thanks for that.
On the other hand, I have to tell you that, you know, all new Bosch buildings, or a couple of new Bosch buildings that have been built the last 10 years have already, like, you know, see-through solar cells around the buildings, to capture as much solar energy as possible.
So that's
As you
something that
know,
you've
and
seen before.
that's something Bosch does already for their own buildings. Whether this is enough to invest in a startup in the space, that's a different story. But Bosch is embracing the technology itself already. That's what I wanted to say.
Very interesting. Okay, so we've got about 4 minutes left. So last couple of questions. This one's also, I guess, specific. Patrick wants to know, and this is also something you discussed before, is Bosch planning to develop or invest in AI chips for edge computing, you know, specifically incorporating LLMs or small language models?
Yeah, that goes back to my former question: inform yourself before you talk to Bosch Ventures. Just kidding. We have active investments in that space already. So therefore, we would be very, very selective if we would invest in more, but it's an area, of course, we're looking at.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense, and it's obviously important to come armed with the knowledge ahead of time. Okay, so this one is again about your process. So Jay wanted to know if this is something you're even willing to talk about. What's the exit strategy of Bosch Ventures? You know, about how long does it take?
So we are structured like any other VC fund. I think that is important to know, since we are raising funds and we want to measure our own fund performance. We have a very typical 3-4 years investment period and 10 years fund life cycle. So we want to see exits within that period. That's not always possible, but most of the times it is possible. So the exit horizon is the same as for any other financial VC.
Okay, so pretty standard. Thanks. I think this is probably going to be the last question, and then we'll say our thank yous. This one is just for you, Yvonne. What, in your opinion, in your experience, has been the industry or technology that's been the most exciting to be engaged with so far?
This is like picking your most favorite child. I cannot pick one, to be honest. The only thing is that maybe I pick one, and it's not the specific technology, it's just the trend. The first company I invested in had to do something with AI and to accelerate computations, specifically for AI workloads. And nowadays, I don't know. It's almost difficult to create any product without whether AI touched the product while designing it, or whether it has to do with AI in its final manifestation. So I think that is a super transformative space. Therefore, I'm excited about it. Of course, there's also risks and flaws and everything, but I think and it's probably like electricity, right? If you remove that from our planet, then, you know, we are back on trees. And with AI, it feels like similar to me.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, we got a thumbs up for that one. Someone sent that. Okay, that's I guess the end of our time today. So Yvonne, thank you so much for your time and for your answers. This was really informative, and we really appreciate it. So thank you also to the audience, everyone for joining, everyone for asking such great questions, and have a great day.
Yeah, same here. Thank you, David. Thank you for your very careful moderation, and thank you for everyone who stayed in for so long. Thank you so much.
All right. Have a good one. We're getting lots of hearts, lots of applause. Yeah, was there something you
have a
wanted
good
to
day,
finish up?
everyone.
Yeah. All right.
Bye bye.
Bye.